November 7th, 2004. The night sky over Fallujah erupts. White phosphorus streaks through darkness like falling stars, except these stars burn at 5,000 degrees. Tracers arc across the horizon. Artillery pounds the city walls. It looks like something out of Star Wars. That's what the Marines will say later. 6 battalions staging at the berm. 12,000 American troops about to storm a city where every window hides a gun. The insurgents have had 8 months to prepare. 8 months to rig stairwells with explosives, to turn homes into fortresses. This is the second Battle of Fallujah, the biggest urban fight since Hue City. But this isn't a story about numbers. This is a story about 13 vehicles. A hodgepodge crew thrown together 4 days before deployment. The WARPIGS of Charlie Company, 1st Light Armoured Reconnaissance. The bastards nobody wanted. And in 30 days, 5 of them won't come home. Staff Sergeant Sam Holder, the Marine everyone believed was indestructible. Lance Corporal Kyle Burns, the kid from Alabama with a dip always in his mouth. Corporal Blake Maguayo, they'll spray paint his name on a firebase wall. Lance Corporal Jason Smith, a MIMS clerk who volunteered to drive on New Year's Eve. Combat Engineer Michael Downey, who'll die before they even breach the city. But before the blood, they were just Marines, living in barracks, making stupid jokes, building something the civilian world doesn't have a word for. This is my roommate, Edward. The camera shakes, catches a young Marine grinning, just hanging out, being stupid. The barracks, that's where you learned what brotherhood actually means. Not the greeting card version. The real thing. You spend more time with these guys than you ever spent with your own siblings. Share Firewatch at 3 a.m. Meals from MRE pouches. The smell of each other's farts in a vehicle you can't escape. Me, Matt, and Kyle, we're always together. Kyle was from Wyoming. A little redneck with Copenhagen long cut always tucked in his lip. You'd find dip cans everywhere in his vehicle, stuffed in turret pouches, logs of Copenhagen in his assault pack. Later, when I inherited that vehicle, I took every can. Knew he'd want me to have them. Used them all the way through the city. But that was later. After. In the barracks, he was just Kyle, my best friend. Burns was the other one. Lance Corporal Kyle Burns. Yeah, 2 Kyles. Kid from Alabama with a southern drawl that got thicker when he was nervous. Always had this look like he knew a joke you didn't. The morning of November 11th, I saw him. We talked for a bit. Time to mount up. I told him, "You be safe." He said, "You be safe too." 12 hours later, I'd be pulling the dip from his mouth in the back of a log vehicle. His eyes were stubbornly open. Wouldn't close. That's when I lost it. But I didn't know that yet. A lot of us had been together for almost 2 years. That's unusual in the Marine Corps. Usually, you get churn, guys rotating in and out. But Charlie Company, 1st LAR, was tight. We'd done OIF-1 together. We'd seen some shit. Going into our second deployment, we were seasoned. We thought we knew what war was. We thought we were ready. We weren't. The Marine Corps is run by lance corporals. Everybody knows this. They're the ones who actually make things happen. And you'd be surprised at what information will come out of a smoke pit conversation. That's how we found out about Fallujah. You get the scuttlebutt. Guys talking. Oh, there's something big going on. The Lance Corporal Underground. I considered myself the actual source of it. Rumors started in September 2004. We were on Okinawa, supposed to be doing a MEU deployment. Training exercises, port calls, the usual float life. Then the rumors started. Something big. Something in Iraq. I seemed to be the only one in our company that knew we were going to Fallujah. I was a news junkie. After the Blackwater guys got killed and burned and hung up on that bridge back in March, I'd been watching. The city had become a tumor, a stronghold for every insurgent who wanted to kill Americans. They'd had 8 months to dig in. And I knew we were going to be the ones to dig them out. Battalion Landing Team 1-3 came calling late September. They said, "We have room for 13 vehicles." 13. A standard LAR company has 25 vehicles. We were left with a shell of a company. What they had was an extra log vehicle and a bunch of extra scouts. Captain Gil Warzinski put as many scouts as he could in that vehicle. Just a hodgepodge of what was available. It was a mixed crew. Guys from different platoons. I always said we were the bastards. Like they didn't care about us. Just threw us in one vehicle. You guys are good. 4 days later, we were on ship. But that's what made us tight. When you're the throwaways, the leftovers, you bond fast. Now, let me tell you what LAR actually is. Light Armored Reconnaissance. When I first heard it, I thought, oh cool, recon. Yeah, not really. But something like it. I just remember some corporal saying, we call it lazy-ass rifleman. And I thought, thank God. Turns out we weren't lazy at all. Light armored reconnaissance is cavalry. We're mobile, we move fast. Special operations capable mechanized reconnaissance. Tip of the spear. Here's an LAV-25. Imagine an engineer and an architect designed a vehicle while drunk. Took a boat, took a tank, removed the tracks, put 8 wheels on it, threw on props so it could swim, borrowed a 25mm chain gun from a Huey, slapped it on top. We called them pigs, because they looked like pigs. But that pig became everything to you. You lived in it, slept in it, ate in it, did everything in it. When you're on a vehicle, you do everything together. Share firewatch. Have meals. Watch each other take a shit behind a berm. You're together. And that's where you feel comfortable. The pig is home. The guys in that pig, they're family. LAR was unique because it was a hodgepodge of people. You had riflemen, assaultmen, mortarmen. You had mechanics working as scouts. Even MIMS clerks, guys whose job was to order parts, they'd be driving vehicles. Like Jason Smith. Jason was a MIMS clerk, not infantry. But he volunteered to drive. He didn't have to be out there on New Year's Eve. But he was. Because that's what you did. every Marine a rifleman. It's not just a motto. What a WARPIG is, it's our call sign. First Light Armored Reconnaissance, Charlie Company. WARPIGS. My name's Gil Warzinski. I was the company commander of Charlie Company 1st LAR. I referred to them as the WARPIGS because they were the guys that could and would show up to anything, and Marines of Charlie Company are like every Marine unit, from all over the country. All walks of life, races, ethnicities, backgrounds. They're just a team. They're just a family. There was no shortage of valor. Absolutely no shortage. Bravery everywhere you turned. We shipped out within 4 days. 5 days steaming from Okinawa. Then Kuwait. We're sleeping in Kuwait, man. We didn't know what was happening. We thought we'd be there a while, just sitting as a reserve force. Then we started pushing north. We're all going to die. The guy on the video is joking, but there's an edge to it. Because the rumors are everywhere now. Something big is happening. We started running containment patrols around Fallujah in October, between Camp Fallujah and Abu Ghraib, just feeling it out, testing defenses. We had a combat journalist attached, Scott Peterson from the Christian Science Monitor. Great warrior, that guy. And that's when we had our first casualties. We were conducting patrols outside Camp Fallujah. Next thing I knew, huge explosion. Through the vehicle. Somebody got fucked. The vehicle pitches forward. I come to, a little out of it. That was the first time any of us had gotten hit. First time feeling that shockwave. That moment where you don't know if you're alive or dead. Reality check. Then came the feints. The fake attacks. Every day we'd assault the southern side of the city. Go there, shoot at them, they'd shoot back, we'd leave. Next day, same thing. We were collecting intelligence, understanding their defensive scheme. But we were also inoculating the Marines, getting them used to closing on the city, preparing them for what was coming. About 900 meters from the southern edge, they'd start ranging us with mortars, small arms, machine guns. Our platoon was tasked with drawing enemy fire. And we did. I remember thinking, hell yeah, this is what it's all about. Bullets hitting in front of our face. Dirt splashing up. And not thinking anything of it. I was excited. That's what I signed up to do. Fight and kick indoors. So I was pumped. Back then, I thought I was invincible. We all did. That's the thing about being 19, 20 years old. You feel invincible. You think you're invincible. Bullets hit the dirt, and you think, that's not for me. That's for someone else. It wasn't until November 11th that everyone recognized this is going to be a different fight. This is going to be real. Captain Gil Warzinski had us all gather up. November 6th, 2004, the night before the assault. He made a speech that I'll never forget. The man is, I don't know, I say like more than man, less than a god. He's just got that presence. And he said, gentlemen, before we go, you guys need to make peace with your maker. You need to sort your personal affairs so that you can go in with a clear mind and conscience. I don't remember the exact words, but the message was clear. Set your fears aside. Focus on the mission. Take care of each other. Our business is combat, and there's no guarantees in combat. The probability was we were going to lose, guys. Death is part of our business. I want you to be the most effective, efficient, and ethical killer on the battlefield. And I want you to be harder to kill than the enemy. Fight with a happy heart. I just remember sitting there looking at everybody. Like, oh man, this is real. Like we're getting into something big. I had accepted that I was going to die in Fallujah. I had accepted, with all they were saying, what was going to happen. I had already accepted that I wasn't going to go home. And I mean, there were some butterflies. There was some fear. It was excitement. You realize that something big is going to happen, and it's going to be ugly on all sides. So we definitely knew that this was going to be a real fight. This was not a simple push through a city. This was the real deal. This was our generation's Hue City. Night came, the rain came, and then the white phosphorus came. It's like a scene out of Star Wars. The tracers and everything are going. Explosions, chaos, radio chatter, confusion, being shot at. In the first 24 hours, I probably had about a dozen different fire missions that we were calling in. How many munitions did I drop in the first few days? I would say a couple thousand rounds probably. And that was just me. We get up there to the breach. I was going to be the guy with the bulldozer. It was going to go up, make a breach lane through this berm just north of the city. There's a railroad, elevated railroad line outside the city, suspected to have a heavy emplacement of IEDs. We're currently sitting about 700-800 meters from the beginning of the city. We're in the northern part, and they're going to send up in a couple minutes 3 big dozers. They're going to doze down the berm, and on go the ground, everybody goes in. The bulldozer kind of goes squirrely. It's starting to do its own thing. I remember Lieutenant Mike Akey, the other platoon commander, has to get off his vehicle and chase this thing down in the middle of the night, in the middle of a firefight. Establish communications with this guy again to get him to the breach lane. We were going to secure that breach site and then guide the engineers forward so they could cut through the berm. It did not go according to plan. There's something wrong. The bulldozer can't get through. It takes forever. They sent the engineers out. They tried to push through one of the bulldozers. The bulldozer got stuck. Then they tried to use more explosives on the railroad tracks. It didn't work. They used the other bulldozer. That bulldozer got stuck. Hour goes by, we're still at the breach site. Another hour goes by, we're still at the breach site. It's an all-night ordeal. Just a total debacle. Mike Downey was a young combat engineer that got attached to us. He had a very small 2-man team. They're down there clearing that area, and Mike Downey was hit. We evacuated him immediately and got him out of there. We got him back to the hospital. He actually got evacuated to Germany. Don't know exactly what happened, but his body just shut down on him, and he passed away. While this is going on, my scouts had pushed up. They're on the breach. They're securing the site. waiting for the bulldozer to get up to go through. And one of the scouts trips. He was all Rambo'd out with grenades and flashbangs all over his vest. When he jumped on the berm, he hooked a pin to the flashbang. I'm looking, and I'm watching this whole thing happen through my NVGs. I see him roll on his back and frantically start grabbing at his chest. Was too late. The flashbang goes off right on him, and it takes off part of his fingers. All right, we haven't even got into the city, and now I'm dealing with this. Tanks were getting hit with mortars. There was just a lot of confusion, a lot of indirect fire. We could tell from the looks of it that we were in for a hell of a fight. From there, it was just chaos. And I remember vividly it not being until like daylight the next day, like we're finally in the city. Fallujah is a small town. It's 5 kilometers by 3.5 kilometers. Very concentrated, dense. Pushing into the city, just pushing in front of the vehicle. And it was just like that eerie, empty, like dead city for the most part. I mean, just no life. You just hear these big eruptions of gunfire, and then it'd be quiet. You're just sitting there, and you kind of catch something out of the corner of your eye. It was real quiet. It was eerie. We're driving down, and there's like dead dudes on the side of the road. Buildings burnt out, on fire. Vehicles on fire. And we're kind of just going down, it's just really quiet. Like mourning. The first dead body that I saw, I'll always remember. Laying on the road. There was about 6 or 7 insurgents. From the waist down they were just missing. And all their intestines were out. It was the first real dead body that I had seen. And so I was like, wow, man, like, this is real. It was a scary time. I recall seeing the first enemy body in the streets. And it was pretty clear from where the artillery impact was that that was our fires from the night before. People start to realize that, hey, this is the real deal. This is, we're about to lose a lot of bodies. We're going to lose a lot of Marines. Lieutenant Weber, he says, hey, scouts out. And so we're like, oh man, okay, now this is go time. And man, I was scared. I was like, oh man, I was so scared. I look over and I see this guy in like tracksuits, like the black Adidas pants and a white t-shirt and sandals. He pops out and he lifts his arms and he squats down. He's got an RPG and he shoots this thing. And it goes right over my head. This RPG goes ripping by. And then the 25mm going off. And all of a sudden, we're in it. And that was close. So I open up on them and I just start spraying. It was a little hectic. The very first initial push into the city, I can remember hearing the rounds hitting our side of our vehicle. I have a video of Doc Blanc's down, and he's on the radio. And I said I want to get up, and I want to look at it. I want to look. And he's like, no, Doc. Yeah, no. Fuck, are you taking fire? These guys are. Are you taking fire? No, let me get up. Let me get up. You can't get up. Super quiet, and then all of a sudden, dude, it just went off. This RPG comes flying by my vehicle. And it was like, whoa. And Fish is in the back, and Maguayo's in the back. And they were shooting the SAW on the sides of the vehicle. And it went flying by, and it went directly into Motor's vehicle. We took a rocket to the front of the vehicle. And I just remember the explosion, a ton of smoke. And then just knowing that we had to get out of that spot so we could evaluate what had gone on. Ply, his knees had taken a bunch of shrapnel. And then I had taken some in my hand, my head. And luckily, there was an army support vehicle there with a bunch of medics, and they patched us up. I think by the end of the first day, we found a house that was in our battalion sector. We set it up as a company CP, and we started running combat patrols towards the end of the day. They started playing this chant over the speakers in all the mosques. The chant said something like, "Pick up arms and kill Americans in the name of Allah," or some shit. And it was really eerie. And it had some horses and gunshots. We're 24 hours in, not even. Reality was setting in real quick. Like, oh, this is way different than anything we'd been in. First few days, we were tired, continuously fatigued already, but kind of exciting in a sense. It was incredibly like a high tempo. Like definitely the first 24, 36 hours, I don't think anybody slept. You're so tired, you're hallucinating. You've got to come up with a rest plan. You've got to do something. I remember we had pushed in. We had occupied this house. We see this big kind of a mansion-looking thing with this big brick wall. And we're like, hey, let's park this thing in the living room. Pull the vehicle into the house, get it out of the street. We don't want to park it on the side of the street, come out the next morning, and the rims are gone. Had occupied this thing. Guys are taking their turns, taking like 2 or 3 hour naps, just trying to get something in. At night, it would be like we'd go out and go on these little security patrols. And then you get into like sporadic gunfights. We dispersed into the city and we would clear a house and we'd take a foothold. And then just sit there. And then that would kind of be our base of operations. And then we would go out and start clearing houses. After we would establish ourselves, we would have blocks of homes to clear throughout a day. And once we got started clearing our blocks, these houses were so close together. So we were able to clear, we would clear up to one structure and then go rooftop to rooftop with our expandable ladders. It's obviously safer and easier to go and clear top down. If you clear the building from the top down, they always feel like they can run out the front door. They're less inclined to fight as hard. They'll just flee. But what they don't know is that there's an LAV at the end of that street. And they're going to run out the street and get mowed down. And so that was the tactic. These homes, everybody would kind of make a joke that these were like mud huts. These were small structures. These were well-built, established, poured concrete homes. They were like indestructible. Most of the houses had these centre stairwells that were just meat grinder death traps. Day to day, every day seemed like the same day. Groundhog's Day, over and over again. Just clearing houses. They all kind of blend together. In these house-to-house, street-to-street fighting, it was like pot shots. You get sprayed and then you're like, where the heck did that come from? I don't see him. I don't see, you see the shots don't come. Or you see a guy pop up and shoot at you and then he's gone. And oh man, it feels like you're fighting ghosts. It felt like you were fighting ghosts. I mean, it was tough because they were very, very patient. And there was a lot of times you'd get shot at and not even have a clue where it's coming from. So you you always had to be on your toes. They definitely had some formal training from someone somewhere. They knew what they were doing, and what they needed to do, and they were entrenched, man. They knew what they were there for. Everything was group effort. If you shot, we all shot. We were killing by groups. Nightly rest and daily rest was just whenever you could. If we had a second that you could just sit down and sleep, you would. And while all those guys were getting their Z's, those mechanics were fixing their shit. But my rest, like I mentioned, as a mechanic, was to work on all the vehicles. And I had vehicles from every single platoon coming at all hours of the day. Yeah, I don't recall getting much sleep then. Every morning at first light, we'd have our tasks, our blocks that we would hit that day. They'd say, "Hey, Sergeant Boyd, you guys are going to clear from this number to this number," and all the homes basically in between. All these little things right here are like one-room concrete structures, no bigger than this. But there's an ass ton of them. We're going to be clearing all of them. So, do you guys have any questions on this? Malk and I would armour up. I would have several pounds of TNT. I would have C4. Dozens of 40mm launchable grenades. I would have hand-thrown smoke grenades, regular hand grenades. We'd have half a dozen of those apiece. I jumped on a scale, and I was well over 300 pounds. And you'd be lightened up by the afternoon. Very munitions-intensive target. Days and days of combat. And every day living through it. Every house you clear, a little bit more confidence, a little bit more arrogance. I was confident. I was confident in myself. I was confident in our fire team. Felt like I was invincible. I mean, we were 19, 20 years old. You feel like you're invincible. You think you're invincible. I mean, man, it's a rush. It's like the biggest rush you can have when you're blowing open a door, whatever. It's an adrenaline rush that you can't get from anything else. We lived off of it. Still at that point, we all thought we were invincible. You go on these patrols, you take shots, you'd return fire, and at that time, we hadn't taken any casualties. So it wasn't heavily contested like it would become in a few days. Gunny Kirby, our company gunny sergeant, would show up in the morning and he would drop off his 60 crate for us. And we would grenade into the courtyard, grenade into the house, grenade onto the second floor. Hand grenade here, hand grenade there. We would go through 30 to 60 hand grenades a day. We'd run through, man, my cargo pockets are bulging with M67 grenades. And I think I went through probably about 20 a day. We jump to the next building. We blow it open. Then we clear it from the top down. We then climb back up, jump to the next one, clear it from the top down. I'm not just going to run down the stairs and get smoked by the guys there. Because once we make entry, they know we're here. So before we go down, I'm throwing grenades down. That's where that meme came from. Just where I'm dropping it down that stairwell. The funny thing about that picture is that grenade was a dud. And so people don't really realize this. I threw it down there. 1001, 1002, 1003. A minute. 2 minutes. I'm like, that thing's not going off. And I'm not going down there because it could blow up at any moment. Hey everybody, let's throw a couple more grenades down there. We threw, I think, 3 or 4 more grenades. All right, It's all good. Move to the next building. So we just didn't even go down. And the funny thing is, the guy from the meme, he's an accountant. So this huge blow-up of this meme and this badass Marine just dropping a grenade in a house in Fallujah. And then Debo, one of the greatest guys I know, is a CPA, wears a suit and tie to work every day. The irony. But no, that meme, I think I probably first saw it in 2011, 12, 13, somewhere around there. I remember when I saw it, I was like, oh wow, that's me. I thought it was funny. M67 frag, when you absolutely have to kill everything in the room. There wasn't much time to just breathe, except at night when you'd get a couple hours of sleep or whatever. But there was always something going on. There was never just quiet. After the 11th, it was nothing but go, go, go. Casevac all the time. And I was tired. I don't think I slept more than a few hours a night. I was getting calls from other platoons, other companies. I was pretty much like an ambulance vehicle at some points. There are my brothers. We did everything together. I wanted to take care of them. Doing my job duties as a vehicle commander for that Casevac platform was just, hey bud, someone's hit. I need you to get from where you're at to this grid. Pick him up. Get him to Bravo Surgical. I was an ambulance man. That's what we did. Was that a fulfilling job for you? Oh man. A job? Not a job, man. Duty. A responsibility. I think that's when it really hit me what we were doing out there, and that people really were not coming home. Fucking worst job you could ever probably do, man. If you want to call it a job, that's the word you want to use. Absolutely. I don't wish that on anybody. On our flank, 1st Battalion 8th Marines was there, and I tasked Lieutenant Webber to go make contact with our adjacent unit. And we're not talking like long distance. Like this is a very small city. So he's literally just driving down the street to his neighbour's house to go link up with 1-8. Mission of the 11th, November 11th, Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, was like literally the unit next to us. So we were to tie into their left flank and kind of just provide cover for them as they went into their assault. We're just a supporting effort. The morning of November 11th, we woke up from probably one of our first good days' rest. And one of the first people I saw was Burns. So then, we talked for a little bit. It was time for us to mount up, and I told him I was like, you be safe. And he was like, you be safe too. And we mounted our vehicles. We're kind of observing and looking down these long city streets, and just watching 1-8 goes across the street. And you see all these insurgents like blocks away start to maneuver, trying to counter their assault. So I'm like, all right, well we can't, that's why we're here. We can't let this happen. So we start going, we start shooting. I think even Ward was quoted over the radio saying like, smoke last cigarette boys heading into Indian country. We all knew from that point as we were cruising down, like we're about to go get into it. We're shooting. It's enough to kind of slow them down, but we're definitely not deterring them. They're continuing to move, maneuver forces to counter 1-8. It seemed like they were trying to lure some of us in, but they were constantly shooting at people, so something had to be done. We ended up going down the street. Our vehicle actually got hit with an RPG. It went through our tyre, and I was sitting inside the vehicle. And the whole thing, you just hear loud boom. Alright, this one's real. Again. Alright, so we go there, quiet. We get there, just absolutely quiet. We got the call for scouts out. So, we hopped out. My directive, from Weber, was to take the scout team and check for improvised explosive devices or anything out of the ordinary. We come across a pile of 155 shells, and I halted the fire team because we spotted a pile of like 155 shells. And I was like, oh, this is it. So I signaled back to Lieutenant Weber, and gunfire just erupted from everywhere. I mean every direction. Everything just kicked off, and it was just gunfire from everywhere. Oh, hell kind of broke loose. A lot of small arms and machine gun fire from weapons and rooftops and things like that. And it was chaos. All the vehicles started engaging. Main guns, Cokes, 240s. What I could pick up from the radio is somewhere between 10 and 20 enemy fighters had emerged in this small street complex. We're kind of stacked up on this corner, trying to cover off this corner as we're watching the lavs next to us being ambushed. And meanwhile, we're just getting hit from everywhere. Everywhere. It was 360. This goes on for a while. They're not dumb. And they would have like these blankets and towels hanging from the windows. And all of a sudden, you'd see it was like you'd see a ghost move. By the time you try to acquire a target to lay some effective rounds down, they'd be gone. And all of a sudden, another one would open up. And you're just like, holy shit, dude. Meanwhile, we're getting blasted from the other side. It was a hornet's nest. You don't know who's actually shooting at you, and then you get shot at from different angles. You got rounds hitting your feet all around. It was absolutely insane. So, we're kind of stuck on this wall, but we're just getting hammered. So we're just shooting everywhere we can. They started saying, hey, we're taking heavy fire. We need reinforcements. Steps holder said, hey, we're going to start pulling forward. We get a call. First platoon's been engaged. We're going to back him up. This guy runs out in the middle of the street with an RPG. Nathan's vehicle swung that 25mm and put a 3-round burst in the guy's face. And I was just sitting here wondering, who runs out in the middle of the street like that? So we push down. My corpsman engages. I'm thinking to myself, that was probably the only time out of any combat deployment where I thought, this is the end. We'd had to get back into the vehicle. It wasn't a fight that was really winnable. And so we're pinned up against this wall. We kind of moved back. Lieutenant Weber signalling us to come back to the vehicle. And so one by one we kind of made our egress. I'm suppressing all the windows, all the doors. And I get this feeling telling me that I should duck. Soon as I duck, a burst of machine gun hits right where my head would have been above the vehicle. And I was like, fuck, I need to move. And that was when we were told that one of the scouts had been shot. So I went back to the rear of the vehicle, started suppressing some more. And that's when I got hit. George Armendariz gets hit by at least 3 PKM rounds through his calf. I think it's pretty bad. We're going to have to we need to get him out of here. They're pulling him back and starting to evacuate him. The look was like, man, this isn't good. We're out here exposed to all of this. What are we going to do? So that's when I tell Holder, my platoon sergeant, Sam Holder, like, hey man, I need you to push your vehicle up. Push it up, and I need you to basically get in front of the scouts so I can get him out of here. Without hesitation, boom, he moves up. Sam Holder, seeing this, brings his vehicle in front of them as a bullet block so the scouts can get in and get Armandaris into the vehicle. During this time, he's getting that brunt of those bullets. And Staff Sergeant Holder was like, Kader, I need you to move forward. And I was thinking, fuck, how much deeper are we getting into this? How much further do we need to go? Because we're already taking heavy fire. Now, all of a sudden, the bullets, we were like a magnet at that point. I remember hearing just ding, 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 ding all over across our vehicle. I see 3 little silhouettes on the rooftop. I sat there and just started hosing it down. And my main gun goes down. The 25mm breaks. Kyle's down in there. He rips the gun apart, breaks the gun down, tries to rebuild it, puts it back together. He tries to put it back in the cycle. Nothing. I give him my 240. Kyle is shooting with the 240. I've got my M16. And these guys are coming. They're coming at us. Then the main gun on the vehicle goes down. When that happened, I had just happened to turn around. That's when I saw a puff of smoke come out the side of him. RPG comes down and hits the turret, like Kyle's shoulder. The shoulder with me and the RPG, I don't know how it misses me, but hit Kyle on the side. He keys on his headset and he says, I'm hit. And he sits down, kind of slumps down in the turret. And I remember I'm holding my rifle and I look down at him and he's kind of slumped over. And he's incredibly pale. At that time, I heard a snap. I remember he gets on the gun. He fires about a 10-round burst on his 240. And at that point, I remember looking to my right. And I seen, because he's standing up, I remember seeing blood at his ankles at that point. So I glanced up, and I just remember seeing him hunched over. And I look across, and I see Sam Holder, like he had slumped down now. And he's kind of like, he's a big dude. He wasn't going down the turret. But there's blood all over him. And then the panic, like the panic sets in. I'm like, we're going to die. And I was able to pull him down. And he came down. It wasn't pretty. He had already bled internally, and his lungs had been filled with blood. And when he let out his last breath, it came out pretty violent. And so at that point, I knew that I would have to assume command of the vehicle. I'm backing up at full speed. Andrews is backing up at full speed. Holder's crew is still trying to get him out of there. It was such a panic. And I don't remember what I said, but I remember the feeling I had. And it was like despair. Like I had done something catastrophic. And I wasn't getting out of this. And I remember panicking, and I don't remember exactly what he said. But his tone, and the way he said it, like pulled me back, and it refocused me. I got Paul on the radio and I was just like, hey man, I know you're hurting, but we still got a mission. And the company's still in the fight, and I need you to get your guys back. I mean, it was simple as that. I didn't realize Holder got hit. I didn't realize Kyle got hit or Armandaris got hit. Because I'm in the back of the LAV towards the end of the column, just kind of watching everything, doing my best to suppress the rooftops. We pull back out, and now we're on the main street. Paul Webber, Lieutenant Webber, randomly shows up, and he goes, "Help." And I remember thinking for a minute, like, what the fuck is this guy doing in the middle of the road? We're in a huge firefight here. And here he is just standing in the street. So it's wide open. And then he said it again. Had a very desperate look in his eyes. So I jumped out and start chasing after Paul. Ever Bamberger ran out to join Paul and remain with his vehicle in his platoon. One of our corpsmen, Doc Nunnally, in the back of my vehicle, they both ran out to try to help him. I jump out again, not knowing what I was expecting, anything like that. And I run to the first vehicle. But when I run to that vehicle, I can see guys on the rooftops. It's hard to describe the hissing sound. But at that time I knew there was fire going over. I was like, this could be where I die right here. And I remember thinking, the only thing that I had to get me through it was I didn't want to be a coward in front of all my peers. So no matter what, I'm committed to this. So we get back and we're kind of at this casual collection point, kind of in some cover, kind of not. I just remember people bringing people to us. So we were kind of like the ambulance, if you will. We all of a sudden, we got back, the door opens up, and everyone pours out. That's when Armendariz actually got off of his stretcher and grabbed a saw and jumped out and started laying down fire with the saw, it was pretty epic. So all the corpsmen were there. They were trying to help me. I was in a rage. They put me in the log. From what I remember, I got out because nobody was covering the vehicles. Nobody was suppressing fire or anything like that. They were just focusing on getting Burns out of the vehicle. I remember seeing George jump out of the back of a vehicle. Trousers were all stripped, cut. They had cut him to wrap him up. He went and got another security position. Couldn't even tell he'd been shot. I roll up, and they were getting Kyle out of the back of the LAV at this point. And we get him laid out on the ground. Still had a dip in the upper lip of his mouth. I started doing an assessment, and I got down to the side of his flak, and there was an RPG sticking out of him. And I'm shouting at him. I'm trying to slap him in the face. "Kyle, come on, man." And getting no response back. And I remember seeing rounds popping off the dirt. Like Burns and I were being shot at. I was like, holy shit, like there's an RPG in him that hasn't gone off. He pulls the RPG out of the side, out of Kyle's side, man. And it's washed. Like, just blood and fluid, and stuff just pours out. And Doc was working on him the best he could. Because I remember running by Kyle and patting him on the face and just telling him, "Hey man, it's going to be all right." So I got back in the log. At that time, they were bringing Burns to the log. I picked him up and I brought him into the vehicle. And I looked at him. I could just tell by his face he was gone. And he had a dip in his mouth, just like Burns would have. They load Kyle into the vehicle. They got George back there now. We can't get Sam out of his lav because he's too big. We can't get him out. So that whole vehicle has to leave and go, just go back to Bravo Surgical at Camp Fallujah. I remember the army. They ended up having tanks and whatever vehicles that were there lined up behind us. They ended up pushing forward, taking our spots. And you could just hear the rounds going off. Boom. And Cameron just said, "Punch it." We took off and we started heading out, like basically miles an hour. Nick was working up Armandaris, and I had a couple moments with Burns. I pulled a dip out of his mouth. And then Nunley came over the radio and just says, "Hey, you can slow down." We had heard on the radio that a medevac that was needed. As we're travelling back out into the city, I see Adam in the turret of his vehicle. But I know that Adam is not the VC. He's the gunner. Like there's a reason that he's not up in the turret. That was the longest ride that I've ever taken. Well, I remember as we were going down Michigan and we were trying to get to Camp Fallujah, I was calling in the Casevac on the radio. I just remember Pitcher looking at me, and I don't know whether he signalled like that or whether he was trying to shout at me or something. But Burns was gone. And I think I started downgrading his casualty on the radio. Deceased Marines are routine casualties. They no longer urgently need assistance. It was a horrible feeling. It's bad when someone's getting called in as an urgent surgical and then they lower the priority. That's how you know they passed away. We just got out of this situation, it went from normal day to just absolute chaos and hell. And I remember we're driving into Bravo Surgical, getting into Camp Fallujah. And there's people playing volleyball. And we're passing people just going on in their normal lives. We were only 5 minutes away. It was just mind-blowing. We got back to Bravo Surgical and we got Armandaris out. We got Burns out. But then this is also on the recording too. I had blood all over me. I got blood on, not all. I got blood on my pants. And I never want to go through a day like that again. But going right back out there, and I remember glancing over and I saw a stretcher. I knew it was in Staff Sergeant Holder. And I remember just seeing an arm fall over. And I was like, oh man. There's some pictures Scott Peterson took. There's one of me, like there's blood all over my hands. They had to clean out my vehicle because it was full of Kyle's blood. It was full of blood. Like full. It was like a puddle. And I couldn't go back in that vehicle right then. I couldn't do it. The gallons of water that looked just like chum coming from the bottom. We were literally covered from head to toe in blood. The people at Bravo Surgical were phenomenal. They got us these brand new camis. And they said, "Hey, if you'd like to, now you can go view the bodies." And I remember seeing Burns and Staff Sergeant Holder laying side by side. That was rough. Burns's eyes were stubbornly open. That's when I just lost it. I just broke down. And Captain Albert came out. And he said, "Hey," he said, "you don't have to if you don't want to. But we still need you in the fight." He says, "It's still going on. Do you want to go?" I said, "Sir, this is what I signed up for." And without hesitation, I remember going in there, getting back into the vehicle and taken off. They dropped the wounded and dead off, and they went back out to the city. And I had to stay back there at Bravo Surgical. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I was by myself. I'm walking out of Bravo Surgical with a brand new blouse, no name tapes, no cover, no rifle. And I just happened to run across a first sergeant, chopping it up with a couple females. And he devil dogs me. Like, "Hey, devil dog, where's your cover at? Where's your rifle?" I told him, I apologize for my appearance. All my gear's back with my unit in the city. I just got shot. 2 of my buddies just got killed. My apologies. He didn't say shit after that. Nobody said anything. And I just walked off. I think Gil was the one that found out and told me. And I remember we're in an Iraqi house again. It's kind of darkish, so I couldn't see everybody's faces. I just knew I could see silhouettes of Marines and outlines. And I told them like they're gone. And I remember somebody openly weeping, like sobbing, man. I mean, I'll be honest, I broke down. Being on Kyle's vehicle, of course we were best friends at that point. Just 2 little rednecks. It was that somber quiet that really nobody was just talking. They were just kind of in shock. In that moment, that period, it was like we're playing for keeps. Like we might not make it home. It was a somber mood, but I think the mood was more of anger. Gil pulled us all in the house and had a conversation and said, "You know, there's a time to mourn. It's not right now. We got a job to do. It's finishing." Had my moment and I dried it up. And then that was it. And then I took a nap. And then I was back up on watch that night. Some point. And then it was just another day. Kyle, kid from Wyoming. Getting to know Kyle, we'd done the workup together. Road marches together. We're in the turret all the time. But you spend time getting to know this guy and their habits and what they do. And like he would constantly have a dip in, like there were dip cans, Copenhagen long cut, everywhere. Squirreled about in that vehicle. He had logs of Copenhagen in his pack. And I knew he'd want me to have it. So I took every can I could. It got me all the way through the city. But yeah, he loved it. The hard part was everybody believed in Sam. Everybody believed that dude was indestructible. And so now we are not even a week into this fight. And the Marines see one of the toughest, strongest, most influential staff NCOs in the company is lifeless. And they saw it. And the next thing is like, we got a long way to go, man. We got a long way to go. We're telling the Marines, like he's gone, but he's not. He's still here. He's still with us. He's fighting with us right now. He wouldn't leave until the fight's over. Yeah, I miss him. It was tough. You think about these things. You're like, man, my decisions just led to the death of 2 Marines. There's not a day that goes by you don't think about it. Or what happened. That was 20 years ago. And it was tough for me as a company commander, not being able to respond and support Paul there in that fight. Holder, Burns, were just great Marines. And so it just hurts to lose good people. But they're warriors. They went out like warriors. They're in Valhalla right now. I'm happy for them. They lived the warrior's life. I'm happy for them that when the moment came for each of them, They did what they believed was the right thing to do as a Marine. And they sacrificed themselves. And then you just kind of try to regroup and pull your shit together. Because it's been like, we'd only been in the city at this point, like we went in on the 7th. It's now the 11th. I went and talked to Lieutenant Weber, and I said, "Hey sir, I want to take his place. Like, I want to be the gunner on your vehicle." It was hard to jump in with that crew. Everyone was angry. And so I knew coming in, like, okay, this is going to be tough. But what made matters worse was I went out to the vehicle and had to wash out most of Kyle's blood. I broke down, like it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Like I knew where I was sitting, like he was there. That's where he took his last. Lieutenant Weber just told me, "Hey, you're going to take over Staff Sergeant Holder's vehicle. And you've ever been around a significant amount of blood, even when you clean it, there still is a smell." This was our first experience ever seeing a brother die. And I think for all of us, it made us very, very aggressive. No one was sad when we would get into a fight. And no one was looking to avoid putting the hurt on terrorists. We're like a football team. We want to play the game. I hate that analogy because in a football team, win or lose, everybody gets to go home. We don't play fucking games. Our shit is serious. Dudes are now out for vengeance. And they want payback. So we have to kind of temper it a little bit because they're itching to get into a gunfight. I mean, anytime we take contact or a shot, like somebody from a house would shoot at us, all right, fine. We'd cordon the house. Basically, surround it. We would shoot ALW rounds into the houses and hope that something would catch on fire, which eventually it would. To Cameron's point, he would joke, like he could follow where 1st Platoon was through the city because there'd just be plumes of smoke. I wasn't going to lose another Marine because I was going to value somebody's property over a life. Well, lo and behold, we literally wrecked a block. I mean, they were on their own turf. They knew they had secret passages. They had ways to get through. And we would clear it, and these insurgents would go out, circle back around in a place that we just cleared. And so, during this time I was like, man, let's pile stuff up and set it on fire. So they can't come back in here. And it was actually very effective, because you can't go into a house that's on fire. I tried to. I wanted to blow everything up. Deep down inside, I wanted to kill everything. But it was not going to be healthy for my platoon to see that in me. If we didn't think about the next block, there was going to be more casualties. There was going to be more loss. Let's go to the next chapter. As hard as that is. We will mourn when we have time to mourn. Now we're going to kill. We're going to do our job. We were doing a lot of patrols. I mean, I spent so much time in the turret just driving around. It felt like I was just driving around in circles for just days and days and days. I mean, we got in gunfights 2, 3, 4 times a day. Every day for a long time. It was pretty constant for 30 days. As their numbers dwindled, instead of fighting ghosts, they were barricading themselves into homes. And it was just a sit-in waiting game. So they were waiting for people to enter that home and to come upstairs. Gil said, "Hey, I want to break open all these doors and see what's going on in here." I don't know if it was Fish or one of the boys had popped a lock with some lock cutters. and RPK fire came right out of the door. Turns out they had locked themselves in there, just waiting for that. And I remember seeing fish just run. And then I told Dinger to just keep shooting. I said, shoot every door behind fish as he's running. And that's how close we were. And I remember fish looking at us like, oh my God. It was wild. I mean, who's going to think you're going to get locked into a building or a garage door, tack, and your only mission is to wait for Marines to come and pop it? I mean, that's the kind of evil we were dealing with. Having that constant alert, I would say it does wear on you. It does. The more people we lost and the more thin we got in the ranks, we definitely lost efficiency and effectiveness. And I think people got a little punch drunk. Taking risk is what you do. And I think sometimes people get a little numb to the risk. I think in order to operate in that environment, you really have to realize, like you're dead already. Like, if you want to survive, you have to realize that my life is not the most important thing here. It's the lives of my buddies. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that they're safe and they're going to make it home. In the city, there was so much going on. And when we'd lose somebody, you didn't have time to grieve or do whatever. Because if you did, your mind wasn't in the right place. So, you had to compartmentalize. And you push all that back. You have to shut everything down. You can't let your emotions control you. Because at that point, everybody's lives are at stake. So if you're going off emotions and you're letting your emotions get the best of you, that's going to get somebody else killed. There was a sickness around that city. Whether it was bodies or it was just disgusting. And I remember trying to get some chow down one morning. And I remember seeing a dog in front of us as the sun started coming up. I continued to eat. And I was like, what in the fuck is that? And it happened to be a hand. But what really got me was the ring. That really brought things into perspective. That hand and ring belonged to some gentleman. And watching a dog eat somebody's hand, that puts your life into perspective. Like you are in a place where if you're not on it, your hand's going to end up in some dog's mouth. So, yeah, it was the most surreal thing I've ever seen. Gunny Kirby comes by in the log, checking on us, bringing us chow. And he asked me, "Did the doc clear you?" I was like, "Yes, sir. Yes, Gunny." So he's like, "I'll jump on." So I got my shit loaded up on the log and met back up with my unit. That same day, that evening, a week and a half later. It was great seeing them. We all gave each other hugs and caught up. But that day, I came back. We were engaged in another firefight. As usual. I remember waking up. We all just somehow sat up, in our sleeping bags. And we looked around at each other. And Corporal Carter says, "Hey fellas, it's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving in Fallujah." We cleared houses all day. We come back to the house and there's a banquet. Gunny Kirby had gone back to Camp Fallujah. And he came back with a bunch of steaks and turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy and all this stuff. And Gil had everybody take a moment and remember the people we'd lost. And think about our families. I don't even remember exactly what he said. It was about reminding the guys that we are family. We are fighters. It was about appreciating the fact that you're alive. We were doing what we all signed up to do, and it was a touching moment. We were still in the city, and there were still firefights going on. We hadn't showered in 3 weeks at the time. We were dirty. We were sweaty. It was disgusting. We were all just grungy. We hadn't had any decent food. It was just all MREs. And so for them to bring us this Thanksgiving dinner, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was by far the best Thanksgiving I've ever had. It was that sigh of relief, and that moment of normalcy that we lacked. It was like home in the middle of chaos. I think the actual Thanksgiving day, me, Fish, Smack, we went out on patrol. We were clearing houses. Come across a house that had chicken and rabbit. We snatched them up. And it wasn't good. But it felt good because it was a home-cooked meal. We made it on the stove right there in one of those houses. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at these guys, like I got to go back out there as soon as we're done eating. And so, it was a peaceful moment. I believe the right word for it would be serenity. That's what you live and die for. To have that brotherhood. And so, to me, that was one of the best experiences I've had for Thanksgiving. By November 29, we'd already pushed all the way through the city. We'd cleared all the houses. And then, once you got down to the bottom side of the city, it was more industrial. MSR Michigan was really rough industrial area. So we called it Funland because it was absolutely horrendous to go into. And we had to go into there at nights on a pretty regular basis. Me, Fish, Mac, Blake, all of us were tight. Like real close. 3rd Battalion in general, all of us were tight, man. We were good friends. We had moved into the Fallujah fire station. It was the city's fire station. We moved in and we started building it up and turning it into a patrol base. This larger structure, at the tip of my finger, was the firehouse. We were on the back end. We were on the downhill slide. And I mean we'd done it. We'd pushed through the city. And we thought, hey, we're here. We done did it. We made it. We made it through. The morning of the 29th, we're in the backyard filling the sandbags. It was again kind of like a normal day in Fallujah. A few of the scouts went outside the perimeter there, the fire station. I had looked at Magueo, and I kind of was like, where are you going? He just kind of shot me this look. Just kind of mean-mugging me. Like almost to say, don't worry about it. They went around the corner. Blake, Fish, and Mac, they start clearing the houses on the other side of the street from the fire station. Then sure enough, I hear pop, pop, pop. Hear all this commotion. Just a lot of gunfire, a lot of grenades. The radio chatter comes across, hey, Mac's hit. Dropped everything we're doing. Ran in, grabbed my rifle, grabbed my rest of my gear. Got up. Me and Aldridge, we ran out. I grabbed my stuff and I was like, where? Where? Just point. So we, machine gun fire and some grenades. And I'm like, what? What was that? Because it was just on the other side of the wall. It was right next door. Macmillan and Fish, Chris Anderson, they come running. And they are holding their guts. The scouts are coming back. I think there's some injured. I was like, what? What is going on? I remember Mac and Fish coming around that corner holding their guts. And they had taken shrapnel to the gut. Fish and Mac go into clearing room to room to room. And Blake's looking up at the steps, making sure nobody's coming down. Fish and Mac go into the first room. They clear it. They come out. They hear AK burst. And they come out of that room, and Blake's laying at the bottom of the steps. And the insurgent is trying to make his way up the steps. He throws a grenade downstairs where Fish and Mac are standing. And that grenade blows up, hits Mac and Fish. They're peppered. They've got blood coming down. And I started working. Fish up. And Fish grabbed my hand. And he goes, "You have to go get Magwayo." I'm like, where? Where the fuck is Magwayo? He's like, he's in the house across the street. I'm like, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. And they're like, Blake's still in the house. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean Blake's still in the house? Like, sir, he's still in the house. I'm like, okay, let's go get him. Tell Dinger and Garcia to fire up the vehicles. We literally jump on the vehicles as they're moving. Me and Sergeant Garcia position ourselves literally in front of the house. Very quickly, Eddie and the scouts were going to make entry into the house. And so we sent another team, pull them out of there. And then it just became this sort of ever-unfolding clusterfuck to try to get them back. Me and Aldridge kind of looked at each other. Like, hey man, I'll run point. Another, they're in there, we're going to go in and get Blake. And I got in the stack. And we were waiting, trying to figure out what was going on. We turned into the courtyard. Front door was wide open. So I was like, man, we're not going through that door. So we went around. There's another door on the right side of the house. So we ran up to it, kicked in the door, went in. And I was already seeing tracers going. It was just, there was smoke everywhere. A lot of small arms fire coming down the hallway. Bam, 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 hitting the walls. So I grabbed my flashbang, tossed it into the little hallway. It goes off. I take a peek. Somebody was standing upstairs, just laying constant AK-47 fire. Just machine gun. Just tearing up the downstairs. It was just a barrage of fire. I got down low. We started working our way into this next hallway. Looking up the steps, trying to see this insurgent so I can get some gunfire on him. Soon as I turned that hall, blink of an eye, bam. I'm standing up, and then I'm laying on my back, staring up. Aldridge standing over me. A pretty meaty gunshot through my left leg. And practically like a graze to my right, about 4 inches deep, on the right side. I was already calling a case vac for Fish. I called in the case vac for Macmillan. And now I'm having to call in a casevac for Eddie. Gil gets on the radio, and he tells me, "Take a deep breath, Dinger. You're doing fine." I literally was just on my hands and knees going. I had no idea what I was even feeling for, but I felt these other Marines coming out. And I felt a body, like they were attached to him. And I went in, and I grabbed the other arm and started just dragging him out. Meanwhile, this firefight is going on over my head. Guys are shooting out the doors and stuff. And they grab Blake and we carry him out. And they take him back to the fire station. And I looked down, and I saw grey matter coming out of Blake's ear. And I knew it was over. I already know Blake's gone. And then we go to prepare for evacuation. And they get him out of there. And all the stuff that they stripped off his body, all his gear, is there in a pool of blood. And I just started screaming, "Get me, get me, get me fucking trash bags and get me water." Now. And Marines started to come help me. And I said, "Get out of here. Keep everyone away from here." Because I didn't want them to see that. And I was just trying to wash it all away. I threw everything in trash bags, and I wanted to get it out of the sight of the Marines. Once again, it's not over. We got shit to do. By the time this was all happening, the rest of our company was catching up. The doc had came through. He was applying the tourniquet on my leg. Like, oh crap, it's reality. It's hitting. And that pretty much took me out of the fight. Made it to the base. Made it to Camp Fallujah. I went straight to surgery. The pictures Scott Peterson went in there too. I mean, the walls are Swiss cheese. I have no idea how we didn't receive more casualties. But we got Blake out. And they smoked those fuckers. It's dead-ass silent. And you're trying to process it. And all you can do is at the moment try to understand as best as possible. Come out of surgery. Kind of in that 4-day doctor-induced coma. When I come to, Fish is in the bed beside me. Like, "Hey man, where's everybody at?" Like, "Hey, what happened?" Trying to catch up. And then Fish told me Blake was killed. And then Mac was already life-flighted to Germany. Getting hit kind of changed my perspective. Being shot, being injured, like I said, I thought I was invincible. I really did. Blake was really close to me. We had a very close relationship. So when that happened, it was tough. It was tough. Every day I question, like, what else could I different? What could we have done differently? And I wake up every morning thinking about him. And he was a great kid. I call him a kid because he was just silly. He's a silly guy. And he was a motivator. That was a rough day. And it tore me up. But like, we got shit to do. And yeah, it took us 45 minutes to get in that freaking house. So that was the 29th. I mean, it put a lot of strain on everybody. Blake was being that big loss. We wanted to put our stamp on and leave our mark there for Blake. And so what we did is we found some paint. And we literally took the sign off of the fire station and sprayed it Firebase Magweo. And we took that picture. I think we took that picture the day we were leaving out of the city. The scene there now is changing very rapidly. It was like clear the city one way. Back, clear it again. Clear it again. At that time, we're into early December. Our role in the battle was kind of coming to an end. I just remember things kind of slowing down. I remember us sitting on top of the roof one night, and it was just about sundown. And I remember us just both kind of taking deep breaths and looking at each other. And you could just smell death. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just death. And that was towards the end. And you just kind of realized what you had been through. The chaos, the havoc, the destruction of everything that just happened. We're moved out of the city. But where it really gets difficult is we're still that MSR task force. And we started running MSR security patrols out of Abu Ghraib prison. So, hitting the highway every day for another hour, we're doing MSR security for MSR Tampa, which is round trip, kind of past south of the city. December 31st. We're doing the same stuff we've been tasked to do out of Abu Ghraib. Patrol the MSR, secure it, make sure there's nothing nefarious going on the side of the roads. I remember seeing Jason. He said, "Oh, I'm going out on patrol." I said, "You are?" Like, what are you doing? "I'm driving." I'm like, "Oh, all right, man. Hey, good luck." We were supposed to actually be out on that mission. There was a miscommunication on the scheduling. I go to the vehicle, and Smith is in the vehicle. He's doing his preps and all that. Like, what are y'all doing? He's all, "It's our turn tonight." I was like, "No, man, it's our turn." He's all, "No, man, don't worry about it. We got it." I was like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm sure. We got it." I'm like, "All right." So, by that point, Gil had given me the dubious responsibility of being an LAV vehicle commander. So here I am. I'm a young artillery lieutenant. And I've got a section of LAV 25s. And that was just based off of the combat attrition to that point with vehicle commanders. Jason Smith was a MIMS clerk, but he was also trained as a driver. And we were down drivers. And so Jason Smith was driving on patrols. His vehicle commander was my artillery officer. Right, the artillery officer became a section leader. Pulled out with my vehicle. And probably about 100 meters behind me, the second vehicle was pulling out. That vehicle was driven by Lance Corporal Smith. And we were on the patrol, and it was coming to the end. We were just actually going from being off the road to going back onto the road. We're coming down, we're heading out in the right direction. And I'm sticking out of the vehicle. I got Smitty driving our vehicle. I'm about to reach up to the switch to my driver and let him know, "Hey, follow the tracks. Stay on the tracks." But as soon as I'm doing that, it's over. All of a sudden, you hear a big boom. I can smell smoke though. And Devo says, "Somebody got hit." I remember hearing the detonation, looked back real quick. And it was just in my NVGs, it was just a cloud of black smoke. By the time I got back to that vehicle, I found most of the crew wandering outside the LAV, fairly disoriented. Now, it's pitch black. It's middle of winter time. It's really cloudy. There's no moonlight, no nothing. I couldn't see nothing. And so Devo guides us over there with a flashlight. I'm kind of coming too. I'm checking the guys in the back. Bell's a little rattled. I get the thumbs up from Nate. I'm looking down at my gunner, at Ryan. Good old Joe. And he tells me, thumbs up. So I'm yelling at him, Jason, crazy legs. Sweet. I got nothing. It's radio silence from the front vehicle. And at this time, I can't see too well what the front of the vehicle, because the front of it, on the top, looked fine. So I pop out. I let Ryan know. I'm like, hey man, I gotta get over to the front. And I'm coming around, found the vehicle. Get over, pop the hatch. He's not responding. He's just not moving. I remember finding the vehicle commander, grabbing him, asking him where his crew is. And we were missing one. And that was Smith. And he was still in the driver's hatch. And we opened it up. And I just remember the inside of the lav was still kind of smoky. And I had the corpsman with me. He got in. And that, it's not an easy area to pull a Marine out of, is the driver's station. So we're trying to shake him awake. You can't see what happened to his leg. You can't tell that his lower extremities have been mangled. And then, in the course of trying to get Smith out, he ended up dying in the hatch. We couldn't extract him. And the next call I had to make was back to the company to say that the case vac was now routine. And that was a sign to everybody that Smith was gone. And it went dark after that. Next thing I know, we're at Abu Ghraib Medical Center. So a couple hours later, Willie comes in and checks up on me. And he goes, hey dude, big good man. What's going on? What happened? Where are we at? How's everybody doing? Like, where's Smitty, man? Oh, he's outside. He's waiting for you. Is he all right? Pats me on the back. He pats me on the back. And he's like, yeah, bud, it's good. And I just see a black bag. What the fuck is this? What is this, man? I look over and they zip it open. I look at Willie and I'm like, I thought you said he was all right, man. I pound his chest. I hit Smitty on the chest, thinking I'm going to bring him back or something. But he was gone. I saw that night went. Jason was really beloved. Very much worth noting, he was a MIMS clerk. He's not an 0311. And when people talk like pog this and pog that, which is fun to do, and I definitely do it from time to time, don't get me wrong, but that's the biggest crock of shit I've ever seen. My mechanics, my MIMS clerks, my optics technicians in the company were some of the most badass Marines of the entire group. Jason didn't have to be driving that night. He volunteered. And you don't need a MIMS clerk for Fallujah. He was rocking an M249 the entire way. So the embodiment of every Marine as a rifleman, I have seen proven true time and time again. I can still see his face looking over Bobby's shoulder. Bobby Blanchard and another mechanic. And I mean, me and Jason Smith. I told you, just 2 months ago we were in the back of Staff Sergeant Nelson's vehicle, joking, messing around. And that one was a little different too, because we all got to say goodbye to Jason. We got to say our goodbyes and our respect in a very quiet manner, and in a warrior-type send-off. And yeah, it was a hard thing to be a part of. It's harder now. This kind of really the first time I've ever talked about it, I guess. Yeah, Jason was a specifically hard hit to me and everybody. Yeah, that one hurts. Smith was our last casualty while the company was deployed. Obviously not an easy night. Never an easy New Year's Eve going forward, I think, for anybody. And you just try to honor those sacrifices as you go on. They went out doing marine stuff. I try to remind guys that, yes, it's sad, it hurts. But man, they would not want you to be hurting. Everybody's really kicked in the gut from it. And then that anger sets in. At that point, we were outside of Fallujah. We were not in contact, hardly ever at that point. So there was a bottled up rage there that just didn't get out like it did in Fallujah. Eventually, we pulled out of Abu Ghraib. We went back to Camp Fallujah. We washed our gear down. We joined back up with 1-3, and then we convoyed back to Kuwait. The road march out of there was a fucking long one. I remember somebody kept saying on the net, "Are we there yet?" and causing some officer to lose his shit mind. But it was like once an hour. Are we there yet? Yeah, I just remember just being kind of a wrap-up to one of the most surreal things you could ever really experience. We're back in Kuwait. And then we got back on the ship. And it was back to shipboard life. Getting on a ship, and instead of being packed in like sardines, having empty racks all over the place. Like knowing, oh, that's where so-and-so was sleeping before we got off. We got there as a team. And we're leaving there a little less. We're leaving there a little light. And seeing that visually, I mean, it's quite shocking to think that that many folks came there with you. And that's how many are not going home with you. That was a 10-month deployment. All right, so 9 months post-Fallujah. We're on ship, and we stop in Thailand. The Greeks used to do this purposely. They would take these warriors and put them on a small island, and have games and feasts, and get that shit out of their system. And that's what Thailand represented for us. And it was very healthy. We didn't approach it very healthily. It was out of control, to be honest with you. I don't know whose idea it was to release a battalion's worth of Marines there. This probably isn't the decompression stop that's probably the best choice. So you've got dudes on this boat that were in sustained combat operations for months on end. And then you pull into a place that's got endless amounts of booze. The wheels come off. We're off the rails on a 3-day bender. We had a lot of built-up emotions. When you're pent up and you're just let go, like you're stretching a rubber band and then you let it go. That sucker's gone. And everybody went off the rails. Like everybody. It was a terrible idea for them to let us lose like that. If you're a Fallujah guy, you wear that like a badge of honor. I would imagine it was very similar to guys from Hugh City. Fallujah was a life lesson that I have been spending the past 20 years digesting and trying to understand. I think without realizing it, I learned more about myself and, more importantly, the human condition in that month than I have in my entire life. It was the best and the worst of humanity, all in one setting. It made me a man. It made me the man I am today. It was the best and worst time of my life. I don't know if you could say it was some of the greatest times of my life, but some of the worst times in my life. There's a sense of pride in it, knowing that you went through something like that. But then, there's also the guilt you carry from not everybody coming home. And I don't think that's something I'll ever get rid of. Burns and I shared a pillow the night before. I love that kid like a younger brother to me. I took the back of Burns's flak, and where we had our names, I cut off his name tag. I kept that name tag. And after I got back, I ended up becoming a pilot. Everywhere I went, when I went to work, I always carried my camis, right on the left side, next to my heart. Well, yeah, 20 years later, I asked myself the question, what was it worth? I think it was total 51 people that died. What did their blood purchase? And I struggle with that, because the answer is, it's unfortunate. Fallujah is an experience that has shaped who I am, for sure, but has not defined who I am. Fallujah itself isn't necessarily what I remember or look back on, but it's the people I was with. Fallujah is not something I run from or try to avoid the memories of, but it's overshadowed by the love I have for the men I fought with. Kyle was my hero. He saved our lives because he didn't have to pop up. He could have stayed down in his turret and been just fine. But he popped up. He saved a lot of us that day. And once my son was born, the very first call we made was to Joe and Barb, Kyle's parents. And I asked him again if they would be okay if I named my son after theirs. So that was just a big, big moment. That meant a lot. That his legacy is carried on by my son. And my son knows. And he is so proud of that. My name is Kyle Farr Barker. It makes me feel honored to have his name, the one that saved my dad and many others. We got several that have gotten special forces. We've got guys that are lawyers, CPAs, businessmen, own their own companies, teachers. Some guys are just working guys, families. And that's very rewarding to see, that they're like all Marines before us. Like they come home and they become Mr., Mrs. America and regular citizens. And they carry this weight, and they carry these special memories. They know they're different. Not everybody understands what they've been through, and that has its own impact on them. But life is good, man, and they still look after each other. And that's the amazing thing. They're still family. Where the hell have you been? My God, long time. Has been a long time. This is a lot different from the text. Yeah. This is where we lived. Why are they locking them up? Look at the blast shields they got on the turret now. It's crazy. All this is crazy. I just had my retirement ceremony Friday, yet 2 days ago. This certifies that Colonel Gilbert D. Warzinski, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Marine Corps. Watching Gil sit there and retire after 39 years. To see the amount of impact that he had on so many lives, and for them to fly across country to meet up one more time. It was an amazing feeling. To be able to get together after all these years and see somebody, and it's almost like you never miss a beat with them, Feels good to see, guys. And, I mean, like I say, 20 years. It feels like you just seen him yesterday. There's a brotherhood there that, well, never, that I don't think can be broken. But there's nothing like the Marine Corps, 100%. And there's nothing like the experience that we had. To be a part of that. To have the opportunity to experience that with this group of guys. To know that you're a part of that history. To know that they're with you for the rest of your life in your heart. Wouldn't change it for anything. When you go through those experiences, it just builds a relationship that it's almost hard to explain. I mean, Kyle was my hero. He saved our lives. Because he didn't have to pop up. He could have stayed down in his turret and been just fine. But he popped up. He saved a lot of us that day. And once my son was born, the very first call we made was to Joe and Barb, Kyle's parents. And I asked him again if they would be okay if I name my son after theirs. So that was just a big, big, big moment. That meant a lot. That his legacy is carried on by my son. And my son knows. And he is so proud of that. My name is Kyle Farr Barker. It makes me feel honored to have his name. The one that saved my dad and many others. So yeah. We got guys several that have gotten special forces. We've got guys that are lawyers, CPAs, businessmen, own their own companies, teachers. Some guys are just working guys, families. And that's very rewarding, to see that they're like all Marines before us. Come home, become Mr., Mrs. America, regular citizens. They carry this weight. They carry these special memories. They know they're different. Not everybody understands what they've been through, and that has its own impact. But life is good, and they still look after each other. That's the amazing thing. They're still family. Let me be free. Let me be free. A pauper has no political, only bridges to his door. A wise man has no pocketbook to label him as poor. If a crown and king fall, burdened by the silhouetted sea, let me be free. Let me be free. We crucify our saviors, but witches just the same. Commanding through a godlike, it's the devil's final game. But before we kill the witnesses that could vindicate our plea, let me be free. Let me be free. You got, someone woke me up and I said, fuck it, I ain't sleeping no more. As long, dude, I'm out of tape. Off. Hey, I'm out of like film, dude. Or off. When the silence breaks the barrier that held the tide in place. The chimes of freedom crack the clouds that gazed upon her face. If a bolt of lightning trickles down and brings to bended knee, let me be free. Let me be free. This is the story of 13 vehicles. A hodgepodge crew thrown together 4 days before deployment. The WARPIGS of Charlie Company, First Light Armoured Reconnaissance. The bastards nobody wanted. Marines of Charlie Company are like every Marine unit, man. They're from all over the country. All walks of life, races, ethnicities, backgrounds, experiences. They're just a team. They're just a family. There was no shortage of valor. Absolutely no shortage. Bravery everywhere you turned. I referred to them more than once, quite often, as the WARPIGS, because they were the guys that could and would show up to anything. Combat Engineer Michael Downey, who died before they even breached the city. Staff Sergeant Sam Holder, the Marine everyone believed was indestructible. Lance Corporal Kyle Burns, the kid from Alabama with a dip always in his mouth. Corporal Blake Magwayo, they spray-painted his name on a firebase wall. Lance Corporal Jason Smith, a MIMS clerk who volunteered to drive on New Year's Eve. Every Marine a rifleman. It's not just a motto. They went out doing Marine stuff. They went out like warriors. They're in Valhalla right now, fighting with their brothers. Forever. November 7th through December 31st, 2004. Fallujah, Iraq. Block by block, house by house. 30 days of hell. This was their story. The untold story of Charlie Company, 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance. The WARPIGS who answered the call. They fought with happy hearts. They were harder to kill than the enemy. They never left a Marine behind. They are warriors. And their story will never be forgotten. Let me be free. Let me be free. Let me be free.